Well, right now on the program, we want to talk about something very interesting. History being made, the first ever issuance of high integrity carbon credits for large scale rice methane reduction. This is very interesting stuff. I think a lot of farmers in the Delta and the Southern Plains that are rice growers in the U.S. are going to want to hear about this. And joining us to talk about it, he is the president of AgriCapture. Tyler Hall is with us here today on the program. Tyler, thanks for joining us. Appreciate the time. Hope you're doing well.
Yeah, thanks for having me. Excited to be on.
Well, let's just let's start and let's kind of set this up 1,000-foot view, so to speak here, Tyler. Tell us more about this exciting news. Again, making history here. This is the first ever issuance of these carbon credits for large-scale rice methane reduction. So give us some background on what this means for producers.
Yeah, so rice is the largest greenhouse gas emitting crop in the world. It's largely because it's grown flooded, and flooded rice fields produce methane. And so what's interesting is that even though it's the largest greenhouse gas emitting crop in the world, until now, farmers in the U.S. haven't had access to generate carbon credits by reducing those emissions. Rice is just a very unique and complex crop and greenhouse gas emitting system. And so until this issuance, we haven't had a financial mechanism to incentivize reductions in greenhouse gas emissions from rice. And so this is really exciting. We worked with in kind of our pilot 11 rice farmers to reduce emissions by 37,000 tons of carbon equivalent. And so this is the first registry verified carbon credits issued to rice farmers at scale in the United States. And so we think of it as a new tool in the tool belt for rice farmers as they look at, price, yield, input costs, et cetera. Now there's a new metric that they can put in their tool belt, which is carbon reductions and the ability to monetize that as they, think about how they irrigate their rice fields.
Well, we think about carbon capture and climate smart agriculture, sustainability, such a hot topic right now throughout all segments of agriculture in the U.S., Tyler. So, I mean, as farmers continue to navigate these topics, climate smart ag, carbon credits, et cetera, how can programs like this one help? Let's talk about that a little bit more.
Yeah, I mean, there's a couple of different avenues, right? There's partnerships for climate smart commodities. So there's a lot of grant funding opportunities out there helping transition farmers to maybe lower greenhouse gas or carbon sequestering practices. Then you also have the offset market. So you have companies, oil and gas, financial services, et cetera, that can't get to net zero on their own. And so we're looking to pay farmers to do that. And that's through carbon offsets. And then you have your downstream companies within the agricultural supply chain that are looking to pay their suppliers, so essentially farmers, to reduce emissions because it rolls up into their emissions. And so it's an exciting time where you see there's government support for these practices. There's support from downstream food and bev companies looking to support those practices. And then outside the value chain, there's companies looking to purchase carbon offsets from the agricultural sector. And so, there's different ways to monetize it. It's all in the same vein of either reducing greenhouse gas emissions, sequestering carbon. So when these practices and the opportunities come to, the farm, it's changing a practice to achieve one of those outcomes, tracking some data, and then getting paid for it.
What sort of questions have you gotten or do you continue to get from farmers broadly, but rice farmers as well, when it comes to carbon capture and this program and things like that? I mean, what are some of the questions you continue to hear?
Yeah, one that's, I think, unique to our program that we get a lot is about, well, how long are these contracts? And, how long do I have to keep the carbon in the soil? And so our program is a little bit different, where we're not focused on cover crop and no-till and sequestering carbon and keeping it in the soil. That's what, some of the programs that are out there have been oriented around. What we're looking to do is emit less methane, per acre of rice year over year. And so it's not about capturing carbon in the soil as much as it is reducing the amount of methane that's produced from that field. And so that gives us a lot of advantages that, make it flexible to the farmer. 1-year contracts, right? Because we don't have to store carbon in the soil for 5, 10, 100 years like some of the other programs that are out there. We're just looking to change irrigation practices to reduce emissions that would have been emitted in a conventionally flooded system. And so I think that kind of level of flexibility and optionality for farmers to opt in or out on a year-to-year basis has been one of the big ones that we've gotten. Also because I often get the question of, okay, well, what does this mean kind of in terms of dollars per acre? And rice is unique in that methane is kind of the primary emitter in a rice field. And methane is 28 times more potent as a greenhouse gas than carbon. But carbon credits are issued in tons of CO2 equivalent. So you basically get 28x, the carbon credits from reducing methane as you would from sequestering carbon. Or to say that differently, 1 ton of methane reduction is the equivalent to 28 carbon credits, right? And so for us working in the rice industry, your credit per acre values are much higher than you would see in any other corn, cotton, bean, or anything that's focused on carbon sequestration. And so, that's why we see much higher credits per acre, sometimes, 1 to 2, even north of 2 in some parts of the country. And so it makes it more lucrative to the farmer on a per acre basis.
It's fascinating when you break down some of those stats and the economics behind it and more. Just great stuff to think about. So if rice producers want to learn more, Tyler, I'm sure online, probably a great place to go to get more information, contact info to reach out to you guys there at AgriCapture, learn about what you guys are doing, et cetera. Where can folks get more information?
Yeah, you can go to agricapture.com or email us at info@agricapture.com. Email me personally, thull, THULL @agricapture.com. And also, any rice farmers in the Delta, we're frequently in and around, rice country. So should be quite a few different ways to get in touch with us.
Anything final we haven't touched on, or anything you would reiterate to folks listening in? Again, history in the making here, finding carbon credits for rice producers now in the U.S. Really cool stuff. Anything final you'd want to share with folks today?
Yeah, the exciting thing about rice is that the way to generate carbon credits in rice is basically putting less water on the field. And so there are 9 billion gallons of water saved in these 37,000 carbon credits that were issued. And what we're seeing now is pretty exciting is that companies are starting to have water initiatives and pay for water credits in the same way that, they've historically bought carbon credits. So if you think about the assets that a farmer can generate, there's carbon sequestration, there's reduced emissions, but now there's significant water savings. And we see those markets as being really high valued, particularly as water as a resource becomes really constrained in the United States and companies are looking to meet water goals. So that feels like the next frontier, and rice farmers are in a really good position to capture the carbon benefit, but also the water benefit as well.
Folks can learn more, agricapture.com. And with that, the president of AgriCapture, Tyler Hull. Tyler, thanks for joining us on the program, and we appreciate the time. We'll look forward to talking to you again in the future.
Yeah, enjoyed it. Thanks, Jesse.